Hey guys, Darren here again from Global Garage. So we've got our MegaCD 1 model out, still on the bench. In a previous video we replaced the laser, so that's why the cover's off. If you want to see how to remove the cover, just flick back to one of my previous videos and it's pretty straightforward. So on this video we're going to replace the BIOS. So I've scratched off the plastic or the sticker that was protecting the BIOS chip, and we can see it's a MBM27C1024, and there's something else written in there. What does that say? 15Z. I'm not sure what that is, but so it's basically a 27C1024 EPROM out of the factory. So it's pretty easy. We can just erase that ourselves and just flash a new code onto it. But I'll probably hang on to this original chip with that ROM on it, and I'll flash another chip which I've got lying around. I've got another one here. I think that's the right model. I'll have to have a good look at that, but I should be able to find one of these EPROMs pretty easily, and then we'll chuck it in the old GQ4X and flash away. So I recommend you get one of these. They are by far the best EPROM burner out there. You just need one of these adapter boards. This one's the ADP054. It just gives you the ability to flash large dip packages, like 40 and 42 pin I think they are, and also some of this style, and yeah, it's all automatic as well, so there's no hassle. Alright, so let me just take this over to the TV. We'll plug it in and we'll show you the Japanese BIOS running the default, and then we'll go through the process. Okay, so let's test out the BIOS. It's just the Japanese standard one. So let's just change modes. There we go. So that boots, that's Japanese. Okay, so I've got a language and region switches down there on the side. So when you change the BIOS, you've got to have those switches. You've got to have a way of changing the region, otherwise the BIOS won't match. So I prefer US 60 Hertz to be honest, but that's the Japanese one. And it's an original BIOS. So what we'll do is we'll pull that out and flash a new one and do an install and test it again. So let's power it off and go back to the workbench. Right, so we're back on the bench, and first things first is to pull this EPROM out. So I'm just going to put the camera up on the stand. There we go. All right, might give a bit of a zoom in there if I can do that. There we go. So to pull it out, these Japanese boards, I should have mentioned that this is a Japanese model, MegaCD Model 1. So every one I've ever seen already has a socket on the board down here. So the EPROM just is socketed straight in and we just wedge it off basically. If your BIOS chip is soldered to the board, these legs are soldered right in like these chips are, you have to add an extra step to this process and pull this board out with just a few screws, get underneath it and desolder all the legs. So use your soldering iron, use the solder sucker, just those, clicking basic ones, and take your time and really clean up that whole area. Pull the chip off, solder in a socket, I think it's a 40 pin, yeah, a 40 pin socket in its place, and then you'll be up to this stage here where you've already got a socket in, and we can just pull in and out EPROMs and test them all day with no soldering required. So it is worth putting the socket in if you don't already have it, or just buy a Japanese model like I have and it's already done. Really easy. So to get this out, basically I just use a plastic tool, not to scratch the board. I might use a Phillips head screwdriver as well, but you just basically start by pushing it in between the socket and the chip. Just make sure you get in between there. Don't try and go under the socket, as you'll cause all sorts of problems. Just go a little bit from each end, sort of a little bit at a time, like that, and then yeah, there it goes. It'll just come out. So always inspect your pins, make sure they're nice and straight. Usually from the process of taking these out, you'll bend a few pins, but there's nothing that can't be fixed. You can sort of just put that, on the bench and straighten them like that. Just put a bit of pressure on it on both sides and straighten the pins out. It's probably the easy way to fix that. So we'll put that aside and we'll see what we've got as a replacement. Then we'll download the ROM code, which is freely available off the internet. I'll post a link to that on this video, and we'll go ahead and flash it. I'll show you how to flash it as well. So let me get the equipment set up. I'll get the GQ set up, ready to go. I'll get all the ROM and everything ready, and we'll flash the chip. All right, so I've got the equipment all set up. I've done a quick test with the GQ4X and everything's fine. Mounted the adapter, so that's the ADP054. Mounted it. I'll just quickly pop that out and I'll show you how it works. So these adapters, it's got pins on the bottom. So you just mount it, the very bottom pin into the bottom part of the slot. Put it in like so, and lock it in. Then you're right to burn large EPROMs. Now we're going to do a M27C1024. So if we look at the adapter, it says right there, M27C1024 goes in this slot here, and this one's going to be for much larger packages. So we know it goes in this side. Let me just grab the chip. Where it physically sits, well, it actually physically sits, it uses all the pins, so that's fine. When you've got one like this and it doesn't quite, not sure where to position it, the software actually tells you, so we'll come to that in a second. So I've got some EPROMs in front of me. That's where I bought them from, that guy there. I've got a 10-pack of 1024s, and I've got some large ones here. These are 4096s, so we'll use them another day. Now, I've pulled some out, and I've had some old ones I've had lying around. I want to erase all these, so I did a quick test with these, and they're not completely blank. So best thing you do before you do any of this burning is to erase them. So you get yourself a little eraser. These are freely available off the internet as well. They've just got an ultraviolet light inside them that erases the chips. So when the ultraviolet light hits these glass windows, it erases all the code. So you just physically put them in the drawer, shut the drawer, plug it in, turn it on, and give it some time. Like, I don't know, I think we go that way. And look, if you look really carefully, you can see the ultraviolet light shine through that door there. I don't think it's a good idea that we stare at this light. Yeah, you can see it in there. So that's all running. I'll let that do its thing. It's probably like 15 minutes or so. I don't know, this says like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I don't know. I'll let it run for a while, come back and we'll check the chip out. We'll do a blank test on it, and then we'll write the code and see what happens. All right, guys, back in a sec. Oh, one more thing before I finish this section. With these EPROM erasers, you pick them up typically from China or off eBay from Chinese sellers. They're not going to have an Australian power adapter on them, like a plug, sorry. But I've learned from experience that you can just open up these boxes, pull out the plug that's on there, if it's US or if it's Japanese or Chinese, whatever, and just solder in an Australian cord and plug, which you can pick up from JCar or something, or off an obsolete device around the house. So the one I've got accepts 240 volts. It's actually universal, accepts 240 right down to 110 or 100, I think. So we're pretty safe. We were completely safe to chuck on a 240 volt feed from Australian Mains Power there. So check yours out when you get it, but I think all the Chinese ones are universal, so you should be fine. So that's how I got around the power voltage problem. Just chucked on a new cord, works perfectly. So, all right, let's let that finish, and I'll come back in a sec. Okay, so the eraser just finished. It just stopped ticking and finished its job. It was actually about 15 minutes, I think it was, 10-15 minutes of time there. So it was a little bit. So these should all be erased now. Let's pull one out. So I've got the 1024. Let's put it in our EPROM. I'll just pull this one out I was playing around with. Let's put a freshly blanked chip in. Just make sure it sits nicely. And that one's actually got a slightly bent leg, so there you go. Let's just straighten that leg up. Okay, he sits nicely. Just make sure it's all, lock him in place. Now I'll flick over to the software. So I'll flick over to my screen recording and we'll take a look at the software. Okay guys, so here we are on the software. It's the GQ USB programmer. You can download that from the internet, from these people. They're really good. Just go to their support, download. Oh, there it is right there. Download.mcumal.com. Go there. I've got revision 6.38. I've got the GQ4X. It's not the latest version. It's one version behind, but it's still very good. So you can see up here, mine's the GQ4X revision 2.20, and I'm running software 6.38. So just check yours. You might have the newer version than me. The newer version of the 4X actually runs on a USB driver 3.0. It's a newer software. So just get yourself set up, get your software running. Always download the latest version of the software. Get yourself set up. When you first fire up this software, it does a little version check. So mine's updated. Mine's good to go. There it is. There. This software is updated already. Okay. So that's your first step. Then you go to device, which is this button here, or you could go to device. I just click the button and it comes up with a device list. Now we know ours is called an M27C1024, so you just start typing it in, M27C1024, and it narrows it down for us. So there's different manufacturers here. That's an AMD chip. That's the one we're going to go with. And there's another version there, National. So we're going to just pick the one that most suits your chip, and try and be specific when you type in the code, and it should narrow it down for you. So I've already added that one to my favorites. These are my sort of chips that I burn regularly. So just click that button and move it across, and you can just select your chip version. So you click select. I've already done it, so there it goes, just as a refresh. And it said that I needed the adapter, one of these adapters, ADP54, that's the one we've got. So we've already installed that. By selecting the correct chip model, it sets these parameters correctly. By default, we're set to write and verify. You don't need to do a lock, not for these type of chips. So what else do we need to do? I think the first step you'd want to do is do a blank check. So we've just pulled it out of the eraser, or you've pulled it out of a brand new packet. You want to make sure it's blank. So we come over to here to the big B, blank check. Blank check failed. So, okay, I don't think I erased it for long enough. So let me grab another one. Just put another one in. And let's try that one. Blank check. Right, chip is blank. So always do that. So that one that failed, I'm going to go ahead and put that back in the eraser and give it another pass. Might have to clean the window on it or something. Always check the chips pass the blank check. It's really important. Then I've got a little window open here. I don't know if you can see that. I think you can. I've downloaded the ROMs. Now they come in a couple of varieties. So the download link that I'll post below basically contains all these files. It makes the job a lot easier for you. You don't have to modify anything in hex or in binary. It's just ready to go. And what we've ended up with is like European CD, MegaCD version 1 is what that means. And that's the raw file ready to go. And this one's been byte swapped, which I'll explain in a minute. We've got the Japanese model one, Japanese region free. That's just a text file to read about it. Japanese byte swapped version, US model 1 region free, US model 1 SEGA CD they call it. It's byte swap. So we're gonna pick the US one today. We're going to do the byte swapped version. So What this means is the way these EPROMs work is, it gets a little bit complicated, but the way it reads and not writes, the way it reads the data off the actual EPROM so the machine can understand the language has to run in a certain order, and that's the byte order. So when you get these raw files, you typically need to byte swap them. Now, I'll show you how that works, but if you can't be bothered learning about byte swapping, just load the byte swapped version and you can literally just load it and write it straight to the chip. So let's pick the, we don't need this window, we can come back over to our software. Let's pick the non-byte swapped version. So I'm just going to browse the same window here. US SEGA CD Model 1 region free, open the file. Now just accept the defaults, you don't need to change anything there. Let's load the file from my Dropbox account. Now, up here is the AB button. This is the byte swap. So just clicking that once will do a byte swap, and basically that's all you need to do. If you look at the code here, compare, and we can sort of compare swapped to non-swapped. I'm not sure if I can open that any wider. You'll see that so you can sort of read SEGA MegaDrive in the header here. If we just unbyte swap that, there you go. So it puts it back to, that's how we loaded it. Loaded the file, SEGA MegaDrive, do a byte swap, and that's the format it needs to be written to the chip. So you could just go ahead and write that now. Just for demonstration, I'll open up the, European standard one, accept defaults. There's the code, we can read it. So if you can read it, it's standard raw code, not byte swapped, and you have to edit it with the byte swap button up here before you burn it to the chip. So we could just do that right now, one click, and that's ready to burn. So quite complex. It's a video for another day, how that all works. It's got a lot to do with hexadecimal and the way the machines read the code. So let's not get into that today. Let's open up the file we want to work with. Let's just go straight to the byte swap version. Accept defaults. It's a little bit scrambled. We can see that's right to go. And we now click write, which is over here, the W, write. Let's give it a go. Doesn't take too long. Only about 10 seconds or so, and we should be good to go. Okay, that's done. Did a verify, device write completed okay. Elapsed time 25 seconds, well sorry, not 10, 25. Write okay, ID checks gives verifying, device is verified, 4 seconds. So you could just come and do another verify if you really want to. Verifies over here. Yeah, it's all fine. So at this point we can pop the chip out, go back over to the machine, put it in, and we can test it out. So I'll stop the video here and let's do the test. Okay, so we're over here on the test gaming area with the we've just kind of flipped the lid on the Mega Drive. It's up on its side. We're all cabled up still, but I've just popped the chip, so that's out, just using our sort of a little plastic wedge tool. Just gently wedge it out from underneath. Now we've got our freshly burnt chip here, and we will try and fit it. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, so the pins are a little bit wide. It doesn't quite sit properly. Oh no, it's okay. Sometimes you need to grab these and just flat on the bench, just sort of keep like downward pressure, just rock the pins and just sort of just narrow them up a little bit, just so that they're nice and narrow and they actually fit in these sockets. So the only thing you've got to be aware of is there's the notch up here matches the notch on the chip. So just get the direction of that correct, put it in, and before you push it down, just make sure all the pins are seated in the correct position. Then put some force on it and just push that down. That's all we need to do. Move those wires back. Then we put our unit back on top. It's a little bit hard to do with one hand. Yeah, let me just put that back on top. Okay, so I've just mounted it on top. It's just sort of balancing. We've got our region set to US 60 Hertz, which is going to match our BIOS chip, and let's fire him up. There we go. So SEGA CD version 1.10. All right, let's take a look at let's change our aspect ratio. There we go. So that's all good to go. BIOS is running. Press reset to open the CD tray. There it goes. Let's put in our game. MegaCD Classics. Press the start button. So push the start button. Tray went in. Let's see what happens. Push the start button. All right. Push start. And the game's playing. Alright, so that's a successful mod. Region-free BIOS. Now, to really test this out, I guess we need to chuck in some foreign games. So, let me see what else I've got. Okay, so I've just downloaded the game. It's Luna the Silver Star. It's a NTSC Japanese game, as you can see there. And we'll just go back over to the unit and test that out. Okay, so here's the disc I've just burnt. It's CDR, so we'll chuck that in. Turn him on. Okay, so we're still running the US BIOS. You'll see that comes up as SEGA CD, right? Push start, and this will try and read the Japanese disc, which is a burnt disc and a Japanese game. So we'll get true region free. There you go. So it does come up as English there at the start. Let me just wait for this to kick into gear. Oh, there it is. It just decided to read. Okay, so far so good. I'll just push start. It's doing more reading. And there we go, Japanese. So I have no idea what that says. Something about RAM. I'm going to pick that option. Ooh. Start. I think that's the right thing to do. Something about the battery backup or save games or something. There we go. There we go. Right, so it's still in Japanese. Okay, Japanese game running on a US modified MegaCD. So we're all good to go.